Hi, Sue. Can you hear us?
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Just walked in the door and saw yours. It's like, hold on, let me get in here.
So Matt was trying to share his slides. He's doing the best that he can, but if you could allow him to share his screen.
I think it should allow him now.
Okay, share screen. All right,
And
give me a
for-
second here. I want to make
Because
sure.
I figured that out for everybody who's participating. We will be sending a recording of this session along with any slides to all of the emails and everybody who's participating and anybody who can't make it as well. And then we'll also be putting all of this information on our website under parent learning. All right, I see slides, Matt.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay, it's there from the beginning. Cool. All right. So pretty much this was just like a background. A lot of people are on their phones, so I don't think it really, bother them anyway. This just a quick history of Prairieland Service Coordination. As I showed you along this is a map that I was showing earlier, just in case you needed a better view of it. Our office is in Galesburg, Illinois, which is in Knox County here. And as I said, we cover this region G. The Prairieland Service Coordination also covers region J here and all these counties, as well as region K. Okay, so altogether we serve about 5,000 people. The staff that are the advocates are called independent service coordinators. We are a non-for-profit 501c3, and we are funded entirely from the Illinois Department of Human Services, as well as private donations. Okay, so that kind of caught us up. As I was saying, the very first step into receiving these services is through what's called the PUNS list. Okay, so without much further ado, I'm going to allow Renee to take it over and explain to you all the great things about the PUNS.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The PUNS list is a waiting list for funding for services from the state, whether it be therapies, job coaching, day services, personal support worker, group homes, transportation, things like that. It's for those that have a developmental disability over the age of 18 and on Medicaid. And you can put children on the PUNS list, but they don't get pulled from the list for funding until they're 18 or older. And even after that, it could be 5 to 7 years, but it's worth the wait. How it works for PUNS is you give us a call and we ask you some general questions like name, date of birth, social security number, address, things like that. And we get it into the computer. And then you provide proof of disability. For example, IEPs, autism evaluations, psychologicals, IQ scores, things like that. Once we receive the proof of disability, we review it, and then we get back with you to set up a time to meet with you and the client to fill out the initial paperwork. Now, PUNS is updated every year, so after the first year, we will call you, and you can always do it over the phone and through the mail after the first year.
Yeah, I figured that we would just talk about, all the things of the PUNS and whatnot. On my screen, I'm going to share one of the slides that I made here, if everyone can see that. So Renee, if you wanted to use this for a background or for an outline.
Yes, the PUNS is a statewide database for funding for services from the state. You have to have a developmental or intellectual disability to qualify for the PUNS list. There's two categories. There's seeking services category and planning for services category. The seeking services category means that you need services soon, something that you're planning for in the near future. And the planning for services category means you don't need services anytime soon. You're just planning for the future. If there is a crisis situation, go ahead and call our office and you can work with a program manager about a crisis situation. And once they turn 18, you can seek residential placement in an ICFDD, which is an intermediate care facility, without being pulled from the PUNS list. You just have to be approved for services.
Matt, there is a question. Do you want me to go ahead and address that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, from my view, I cannot see the question.
Okay. So Diana asked, what is considered a crisis? There are three pillars that we look at to see if someone is in a crisis. That would be abuse, neglect, or homelessness. So those are the three areas that the state of Illinois would consider a person to be in crisis. I hope that answers your question. If they're deemed, in a crisis, then we can go ahead and ask the state, submit for funding, and try to find what if they are at risk of a crisis. That is absolutely something that we will look at. So if they are anticipating being homeless, or if they are in a situation that, is kind of trending toward neglect or something, we would definitely, it's so individualized, it's hard to answer that question just kind of as a blanket statement. But yes, if they're at risk, we definitely would take a look at that and see if there's something that we can do. Also, something to think about is that sometimes that crisis is self-neglect. If they are an adult and they're, not taking they're choosing not to take their medication, or they are not following doctor's orders, or, something like that, then, we can try to make a case of self-neglect, or, or even self-abuse. If it's a minor, yeah, again, we can kind of look at that situation. With children, it's very, very difficult to find residential placement for children. There just are not that many places in the state of Illinois, especially after COVID, and the need. There's just not very many places at all. And so, but we can certainly look. Sometimes though, if we see the need for home-based, if we think that like a children's home-based service would help the situation, that is certainly something that we would consider if that minor is at risk of abuse, neglect, or homelessness.
Thank you, Paula.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for the time being? Renee, do you want to go over, so let's say I'm a family, I'm interested in services, I call up you. You want to kind of go over a kind of a step-by-step process a little bit to see what that entails?
Sure. You would give me a call and I would first ask you some general questions like name, address, social security number, date of birth, disability, things like that. And then we would get it put into the computer. And then you would provide us with proof of disability by providing IEPs, psychologicals, autism evaluations, things like that.
Okay, and how long did you say that the usual wait time is?
For getting pulled for services from the PUNS,
Yeah,
it could be 5 to 7 years, but it's worth the wait. And that's after you turn 18.
okay. So is there anything that you need from this time in that 5 to 7 year wait? Is there anything that you're going to be requiring, anything that you're going to be asking for, just so we can kind of get, them a heads up?
Oh, sure. The paperwork is done in person the first year. And then after that, it's renewed every year. So if you change your phone number or address, let us know. And we'll call you a little bit before it's due. And you can always do it over the phone and through the mail.
Okay.
It doesn't take very long at all.
So what happens if I do not get in contact with you in 365 days?
You can.
After the original PUNS appointment, what happens if I don't update it within 365 days?
You can be taken off the PUNS list. It has to be updated every year.
Did anybody have any other questions concerning that? It's pretty simple, simply because we got a question here. Because Renee will go, if I'm correct, Renee, you will make an appointment with them and be with them face to face if you can, correct?
We meet face to face the first year and fill out the initial paperwork.
So a question is, at one point we were told they would not even put them on the list until they are 18. Is that true, Renee?
No, you can put them on the list under the age of 18.
Okay. And what age would you say?
Well, it can be young children up through older people.
Okay. And Paula?
The reason why they want children on the list is so that the state kind of keeps a tab on how many children are coming up through the funnel, so to speak, so that they know how many people are going to be needing services as adults.
Renee, I'm sorry, Paula, were you done?
That's okay. Sue asked if they are on the list but not actively searching until 22, is it still 5 to 7 years from the date of actively seeking? Well, that just depends. I mean, so when Renee calls for the update, she will, if they've been in the planning services, if they've turned 18, she will ask, are you ready to move to the seeking services now that you're, that person has turned 18? They can stay in planning services as long as they want to, until they are ready. But just knowing that the PUNS pulls are taken from the seeking services, not from the planning services. So you're kind of, playing that watch and wait game, because once you go into the seeking services, it can be 5 to 7 years after that you'll be pulled from the PUNS. There was another question: what are families doing with their children until then? You know what? That's a really good question. Now, Allison Stark did say that they are going to pull some children off of the PUNS list this year for children's home-based services. Yes.
I'm sorry, who's Allison Stark?
Allison Stark is the head of the Department of Human Services, and she did announce that a month or so ago that she would be pulling some children from the list for services, and those would be for children's home-based services. But again, if a child is in crisis, we do try to help them.
One of the things that the reason why we want to try to get young people onto the list, because we want to show the state just how many children need services.
Yeah,
And so we can have all this documentation that, hey, not only adults need it, but also for children.
yeah,
And, as Paula just said, that they are going to pull in some children for this year, which is terrific. I've
Yeah.
heard that hasn't happened in decades. So
no, it hasn't.
progress is being made.
Yeah, so what does home-based services include? So home-based services is a set amount of money. For adult home-based services, it's about $2,500 a month that is available for that person to buy services. And that can be anything from community day services as an adult. They can pay for, to go to the ARC at community day services, or it can pay for therapies. It can pay for a personal support worker to come into the home and to help that family out. For adults, that personal support worker can be a family member or a guardian. For children, it cannot be the guardian. So, but for children's home-based services, again, it's a set amount of money. It's not $2,500, it's less than that, and I'm not positive of the amount, but it's, like $1,700 or something like that. And from that pot of money, it's not that the state cuts you a check every month for that set amount, but it just means that that money is available so that you can hire a personal support worker to come into your home to help with that child, or you can pay for therapies or anything like that that would help with that child's care and safety.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions about the PUNS process, or any questions or what it includes or what you may need or not do? At the end of this, I have a slide that has all the contact information that we put in our little chat box here. So if you don't think about it now, but think about it later, please feel free to, contact us. So Renee, was there anything else that you wanted to add? Renee?
I think that pretty much covers everything.
Yeah.
The IEPs for an adult should be, you can usually get them from the school until they've aged out, but usually with every IEP, they provide copies to the parents.
Okay.
I would second that. So many times, if I could tell parents anything, it would be to save paperwork that you get from the school districts, because we absolutely have to prove that your individual had their disability before age 18, if it's an intellectual disability, or before the age 22, if it's a related condition like autism or cerebral palsy or a seizure disorder, epilepsy, those kinds of things. So we have to have that proof that it happened in the developmental stage or in their childhood. And so anything that you get from a medical professional or a psychological that was done when your individual was, a younger person, or those triennial IEPs, I think that's what they're still called, where they do cite the psychological, they put a summary in there of the psychological, so that we can prove that, their IQ is below 70, or that they were diagnosed with autism or cerebral palsy or whatever it was before they became an adult. So it's super, super important that you keep that paperwork when it is given to you at those annual IEPs or specialist appointments or whatever. I can't stress that enough, that it's just really, really important that you keep that, so that when we ask for it, you have it.
Gotcha. I believe there's another question here. SILA versus intermittent SILA.
Okay, so when a person is pulled for off of the PUNS list for services, we will assign you what's called an ISC, or an independent service coordinator, who will sit down with you and ask you what kind of services you're looking for your loved one. So is it home-based services? You're not quite ready to, you know, have them outside of your home? Are you interested in just having home-based services and hiring a personal support worker to accompany your individual out in the community, or work on skills at home, or you know, you might want to go to community day services or something like that. The other option, one of the other options is 24-hour SILA. So SILA is community integrated living arrangement, and it's usually an 8-bed or less group home, where they are provided 24-hour supervision and safety and services. Somewhere in between there is intermittent SILA. So say Johnny is higher functioning and he has a lot of independent skills, but he's just not quite ready just to live independently, you know, out in the community without any supports. But if they can live semi-independently, we can look at intermittent SILA, which just means that they would live in their apartment, and they would receive somewhere between 15 and 20 hours of support per week, where the ARC, as a provider, or any other provider that provides intermittent SILA, would hire a direct support person, or a DSP is what they're called, to come in for 15 hours a week to help budget their money, or shop for their groceries, or do cooking with them, or help get them to their medical appointments. But we are talking about individuals that do have a lot of independent skills and can live semi-independently in their own place.
All right, Paula, there's another question here. Going back to children, what if the individual with a disability is not at risk of being abused, but is at risk of abusing others in their homes?
Yes,
These are great questions, by the way.
Yes, we look at that, Diana, for sure. That can qualify as abuse if they are the abuser. I mean, sometimes we have, you know, little mamas, and these kiddos are getting really big and they have behaviors that are scary, and we can certainly look at that as a crisis.
What you're telling me is, with crisis, is not just across the board black and white scenario. It is kind of
It's so individualized, and
Gotcha.
we just take it on a case-by-case basis and see if we can, you know, make that case to the state to get the funding and the help that you need.
Okay, all right. So on the screen now is just some examples of some of the services that you might need if you are disabled. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, as Renee kind of already talked about, the residential living arrangements to provide you with the care you need could be SILA, which is a community integrated living assistance, which is usually a group home that's 8-bed or less. And then an ICFDD, which is what Renee has already talked about. You do not need to be on the PUNS list or be pulled in order to live into an ICFDD. Those are usually classified as 16 beds or more. And from my understand, a lot of the individuals will live in an ICFDD until they are finally pulled from the PUNS. So
an ICFDD is run by the Department of Public Health as opposed to the Department of Human Services. And so it is most of the time run just like a SILA, but it is larger. It's usually a 16-bed or less, actually. But the person is not the one that's being funded. It's the public Department of Public Health fund the bed. And so the Department of Public Health will pay the provider of the ICFDD to fill that bed. With DD waiver, that is the monies that a person, if you get pulled from the PUNS or if you're in a crisis and you do get DD waiver, developmental disability waiver from the Department of Human Services, your person is funded. And as long as that person stays Medicaid eligible and stays in the state of Illinois, they have that funding for the rest of their lives, whether it be for home-based services or a SILA or anything in between. Throughout their life, their needs are going to change, but that funding stays with them. And if they say they are in home base and something happens to their parent or whoever it is that they're living with, and they have a need to go into a 24-hour SILA, we just get together with you, your ISC gets together with you, and we make a case to the state that you have an increase in need. Your needs have increased. And so we just let them know that, and they will be able to get that increased service if that's something that happens and they need that. So SILA and home base and all of the things, PUNS and being pulled from the PUNS is a Medicaid driven funding source from Department of Human Services. ICFDD is funded through the Department of Public Health. And that's the biggest difference.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. So I'm not going to go too much into what happens when a person is finally pulled from the PUNS list, simply because there's a lot of information. It can be overwhelming. I'm just going to briefly touch on it. Is when a person is pulled, that's when we go through a process called the pre-admission screening, which is a 10-step process you'll go through with your ISC agency. This is where you and your guardian will sit down and select the potential providers that you wish to seek services for. Once funding from the state of Illinois for services is secured, as well as a provider is picked, that's when you are eligible to start receiving the services. And again, there are quite a bit of lists that your ISC will sit down and go over with you about. So once a person is in services, that's when the Independent Service Coordination Agency, the ISC, I know there's a lot of acronyms. I try not to go back and forth with them because I know there's just so many. But once you are in the services, you'll be connected with what's called an individual support and advocate, which is called an ISA, okay? What they will do, they will meet with you at least annually and go over what's called the discovery plan and the personal plan. Paula, real quick, can you just kind of go over that? I know what it is, but I just want to hear.
Sure. So once a person is pulled for services, like Matt said, we go through the process of figuring out what service is best suited for your individual. And then we ask for that funding. The ISC agency submits that request to the state, and then we get a nice little award letter, and I send it to Sue or whoever your provider is going to be. And then, but in that process, we will sit down with the individual and whoever else, the guardian, and whoever else that they would like to be a part of this discovery process. And the discovery and the personal plan basically talk about 10 different areas of that individual's life. There's a self-description portion. There's a portion about their home, or what their home, would look like if they're moving to a SILA, career and income section. And there we talk about if they are seeking, job skills or want a job, or, kind of their benefits and that kind of thing. We talk about important relationships in their lives. We talk about their health. There's a section on health that is very, very important. There's a section on communication, so that anybody reading this will know how the individual best communicates. There's a section on life in the community and what they like to do in the community. There's a section on recreation, interest, and hobbies. So what is it that they really like to do best? And then there's a section on choice. And so that really is where we just state whether they do have a guardian or if they retain their own rights and if they understand those rights, or if they need help understanding all those rights. And then the final section is future plans. So kind of, pie in the sky, what are their dreams for the future? From that discovery tool, we write a personal plan. And in that personal plan are outcomes. We used to call them goals, but now they're outcomes. And they're just anything that the person really wants to do, or if they want to work on something, just to grow in their independence or something that they enjoy. It's very person-centered. And so what it is, what they want to do, that's very person-centered, driven. And so that kind of drives their services then for the year. And we do a discovery and a personal plan every year for that person. So it's, they all kind of look forward to their meeting, and we talk about all those 10 different areas of their life and come up with new goals, or if they want to keep the same goals, that's fine too, the outcomes. So that's kind of that process, but they will do that with their ISC, who is their advocate and support and service advocate.
And again, as I said, I don't want to overwhelm you or bear you down with some of the details that come much later. The biggest thing we're talking about today, just the PUNS. And the biggest thing about the PUNS is the first, just to, to pick up the phone and give Renee a call and, go from there. But there's more to it, after when a person's pulled. And, I think that's important as well. The biggest thing I just want to let everyone know is that once a person is in services, we're not just like, okay, you pick your provider, bye. We will continue to advocate for you always. We work with the Illinois Department of Human Services and the local providers to find the best possible supports for the individual. And the services that these individual wants is entirely up to them. We don't have a say, so we're here to kind of show the choices. Them and their families are the ones that pick it. And I think that's very important too, is that they're the ones that have the say so, the final say so of what they want and what they need. So, and that's pretty much about it. I will be putting some information in our chat box. Let me open up the screen one more time to, give me a minute here. Everybody see that? This right here are all the our program managers, Roger Van Winkle, Denise, and Paula. Paula, covers this region as well. Oh, is this thing, looks like it's too big for the screen. Sorry if everyone can see this right here. So our office phone number is 309-921-9102. And Renee can be reached at her email, which is, I'll just put it down and hopefully that, that will work. And that's it. So, and as I say, and the first step is, the hardest. I know a lot of people get very overwhelmed and intimidated, but luckily Renee has had a lot of practice in this, had a lot of experience, and she'll be able to walk you through it and begin to get you the services that you need.
Robbie asked another question. If someone was on the PUNS list and came off due to moving out of state, but then moves back, is the process the same to get them back on the list? Yes. Unfortunately, they just have to go back on the list to a waiting list for services. Am I correct in that, Renee?
Yes.
Okay. Deb asked, once you complete applications for the PUNS list for your children and supporting medical records are obtained, how long does it take to find out if you're approved? Not long, right, Renee? I mean, once we, if you send an IEP or some medical things, if you're in our area, Renee will send me that information and ask me to review it. And then I look at it to see if the information that we need is in it. Sometimes I'll go back to her and say, you know what, that was just an annual IEP. It didn't really talk about the psychological that the school psych might have done to you know, to say what tests they used and what the IQ was, or if, you know, the medical might state autism, but we don't have an autism evaluation, we might come back and ask you for that. So it just kind of depends. But then once that is approved, or, you know, I say, Renee, that's enough, you know, that does show me, you know, that they do have, that they qualify, then Renee would call you back and go through the process of getting you on the PUNS.
Give me 1 minute. I'm just gonna.
If an individual is their own guardian, do they need to call Renee about getting on the list, or can I call to start the process for them? Renee, can you answer that?
Well, the individual will need to sign his or her own paperwork, but you can call as long as you have all their information and get the process started.
All right, so Susan, I put all the information, some attachments to the chat. Can you access those? I just want to make sure that you'll be able to.
I believe that
Okay,
that my
Was it-
team can. That's beyond my capabilities, but
okay. If you are on this through your computer, just click on the file. You'll be able to download it to your desktop. If not, I can definitely send you a lot of this information through mail. If you look up, I put down our address and as well as our phone number. So feel free to utilize this as you want, spread it to your friends and family. As I said, you know, there's still a lot of people I come across with and they don't know anything about this. And so the first step is getting them to be aware of it. I mean, I think all of us can agree that for these individuals, they need every choice possible, just like we have, in order to live the life at their fullest. So.
and I do appreciate you coming in, all of you, and taking your time to educate us a little bit more on the PUNS list. I think it can be very confusing. A lot of people don't realize that it truly is something that can be developed to meet the needs of that individual. It's not a one size fits all plan.
That's absolutely true. I mean, it just is, it can be as individualized as our individuals are. So.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, I will go ahead and Sarah will be getting it all put on the website tomorrow, and then I will try to get a link sent out to everybody. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want to thank all of you for explaining the PUNS to us. We appreciate all you do.
Well,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much. Thank you for having us again. And anytime that anybody has any questions at all, please give us a call.
We certainly will. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.